Okay, 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 all good. And we're already installed Cloud Code, which you'll need to be using remotion and kind of prompting your motion graphics with. Step a graph and turned it into an animation. And this one, I actually took inspiration from Ali Abdal's video and recreated it. All right, let's go ahead and install remotion on your machine. I will assume that you've already installed Cloud Code, which you'll need to be using remotion and kind of prompting your motion graphics with. Step one is to go to remotion.dev/docs, and you'll end up on this page. We're going to copy this, and we're going to open our terminal, and we're going to copy paste this in. So now it's going to ask us how we'd like to start our first project, and we're just going to go with blank. You can switch between these using your up and down arrow keys. Let's go ahead with blank, and then we're just going to enter every time we accept something. Yes, we want to add Tailwind CSS. That's what they use to do the motion graphics with. And then yes, and add agent skills to Claude, right? So we want remotion as a skill. So every time I'm just pressing enter as a key here. All right, it's asking us which agents to install, and we're just going to go with the recommended. So enter, installation scope, project, symlink, just accept whatever they're saying here. Proceed with installation, done. Install defined skills. So this is how you can actually call the remotion skill in Claude Code. We're going to go with yes. Perfect. So here you have some commands to call the skill with to start creating your motion graphics. So here we have the name of the project, which is going to be in your home directory. As you can see here, it's called My Video. To look into this file, you can actually go cd using a tool called Remotion. So let's dive in. Of course, even as a non-motion graphic designer, you could use templates and insert them into your videos, but I always found that those didn't quite match the vibe of my video, didn't quite match my branding, and weren't easy to personalize with my content. Here's just a few examples of graphic designs that I made using Remotion. Here's a Venn diagram that you can insert your own content into. Here's one where I drew inspiration from a static graph and turned it into an animation. And this one, I actually took inspiration from Ali Abdal's video and recreated it. All right, let's go ahead and install Remotion on your machine. I will assume that you've already installed Cloud Code, which you'll need to be using Remotion and kind of prompting your motion graphics with. Step one is to go to remotion.dev/docs, and you'll end up on this page. We're going to copy this, and we're going to open our terminal, and we're going to copy paste this in. So now it's going to ask us how we'd like to start our first project, and we're just going to go with blank. You can switch between these using your up and down arrow keys. Let's go ahead with blank, and then we're just going to enter every time we accept something. Yes, we want to add Tailwind CSS. That's what they use to do the motion graphics with. And then yes, and add agent skills to Claude, right? So we want remotion as a skill. So every time I'm just pressing enter as a key here. All right, it's asking us which aid on this page. We're going to copy this, and we're going to open our terminal, and we're going to copy paste this in. So now it's going to ask us how we'd like to start our first project, and we're just going to go with blank. You can switch between these using your up and down arrow keys. Let's go ahead with blank, and then we're just going to enter every time we accept something. Yes, we want to add Tailwind CSS. That's what they use to do the motion graphics with. And then yes, and add agent skills to Claude, right? So we want remotion as a skill. So every time I'm just pressing enter as a key here. All right, it's asking us which agents to install, and we're just going to go with the recommended. So enter, installation scope, project, symlink, just accept whatever they're saying here. Proceed with installation, done. Install defined skills. So this is how you can actually call the remotion skill in Claude Code. We're going to go with yes. Perfect. Here's one where I drew inspiration from a static graph and turned it into an animation. And this one, I actually took inspiration from Ali Abdal's video and recreated it. Let's go ahead and install Remotion on your machine. I will assume that you've already installed Cloud Code, which you'll need to be using Remotion and kind of prompting your motion graphics with. Step one is to go to remotion.dev/docs, and you'll end up on this page. We're going to copy this, and we're going to open our terminal, and we're going to copy paste this in. So now it's going to ask us how we'd like to start our first project, and we're just going to go with blank. You can switch between these using your up and down arrow keys. let's go ahead with blank, and then we're just gonna enter every time we accept something. Yes, we want to add Tailwind CSS. That's what they use to do the motion graphics with. And then yes, and add agent skills to Claude, right? So we want remotion as a skill. So every time I'm just pressing enter as a key here. All right, it's asking us which agents to install, and we're just going to go with the recommended. So enter, installation scope, project, symlink, just accept whatever they're saying here. Proceed with installation, done. Install defined skills. So this is how you can actually call the remotion skill in Claude Code. We're going to go with yes. Perfect. So here you have some commands to call the skill with to start creating your motion graphics. So here we have the name of the project, which is going to be in your home directory. As you can see here, it's called My Video. To look into this file, you can actually go cd as a command in My Video. So just open that folder, and then you can run remotion. So let's open a new tab here, and we're just going to go Claude. Yes, I trust this folder. So before we start, just navigate to My Video, which is the correct folder. Yes, and now npm run dev, and that's basically going to open up remotion in Chrome, so we can actually view whatever motion graphic we're making or creating. Over here, we can see that that command opened up remotion for us, and this is actually where we're going to see every motion graphic that we prompt just be created as a new composition, as they're called. So on the left here, we have our compositions. This one doesn't have a name yet, we can rename it, but whenever we start making them, they'll just automatically be added there in remotion. And you can actually view what's being done here as well as render them in the end, but we'll go over that. Now that we've set up remotion on our machine, we can actually start grabbing inspiration for motion graphics that we'd like to recreate in remotion. So you can think of any graph, any title page, any diagram that you'd like to recreate. I will preface this by saying that some things work better in remotion than others, so try to keep it simple initially and not too complicated. Things like arrows are kind of hard to recreate. But I'm going to show you how I created the 4 videos that I showed you at the start of this video, and we're just going to recreate them together. I'll show you exactly where I find inspiration for motion graphics so you can actually start building your own inspiration folder as well. The first place I go to for inspiration for motion graphics or diagrams that I'd like to animate using remotion is Pinterest. That's saying that some things work better in remotion than others, so try to keep it simple initially and not too complicated. Things like arrows are kind of hard to recreate. But I'm going to show you how I created the 4 videos that I showed you at the start of this video, and we're just going to recreate them together. I'll show you exactly where I find inspiration for motion graphics so you can actually start building your own inspiration folder as well. The first place I go to for inspiration for motion graphics or diagrams that I'd like to animate using remotion is Pinterest. Now, you might think that most things on there are static, and that is true, but that's okay. We can actually animate a static image, and that's kind of the power of using Claude and remotion to create animations like this. So this one actually happens to be a GIF, but we can actually feed that to Claude and it can use it as inspiration to recreate this as a motion design. I don't want the Polish currency in my graph, but I want to make a graph about my newsletter subscription growth. So we're just going to go ahead and save this image as something. So let's say graph. And I actually have in my home directory a folder called animation examples, which we're going to save this to. So we've saved that to graph. Now we're going to head back to our terminal and we're going to ask Claude to recreate this using remotion. So I'm just going to copy this, Command C and then Command V, and then I'm going to tell it to use it as inspiration to create a new composition. It's going to ask us if we want to proceed, and we're going to say yes. Now in the background, we can actually see when we go back to Chrome, to our dev environment, it's created this animation. So let's play it and see how good of a job it did. So that's super close to the image that we fed it, right? Of course, as I mentioned, I want this to be about my subscription or my newsletter subscription rate going up. So we can actually just prompt that using super literal terms to make amendments here. I'm going to say, make this an upward graph showing newsletter subscriber count to 12,500 subscribers. It's so cool to see how it actually comes up with the code for these graphs and the actual happens to be a GIF, but we can actually work better in remotion than others. So try to keep it simple initially and not too complicated. Things like arrows are kind of hard to recreate. But I'm going to show you how I created the 4 videos that I showed you at the start of this video, and we're just going to recreate them together. I'll show you exactly where I find inspiration for motion graphics so you can actually start building your own inspiration folder as well. The first place I go to for inspiration for motion graphics or diagrams that I'd like to animate using Remotion is Pinterest. Now, you might think that most things on there are static, and that is true, but that's okay. We can actually animate a static image, and that's kind of the power of using Claude and Remotion to create animations like this. So this one actually happens to be a GIF, but we can actually feed that to Claude and it can use it as inspiration to recreate this as a motion design. I don't want the Polish currency in my graph, but I want to make a graph about my newsletter subscription growth. So we're just going to go ahead and save this image as something. So let's say graph. And I actually have in my home directory a folder called animation examples, which we're going to save this to. So we've saved that to graph. Now we're going to head back to our terminal and we're going to ask Claude to recreate this using Remotion. So I'm just going to copy this, Command C and then Command V, and then I'm going to tell it to use this as inspiration to create a new composition. It's going to ask us if we want to proceed, and we're going to say yes. Now in the background, we can actually see when we go back to Chrome, to our dev environment, it created this animation. So let's play it and see how good of a job it did. Nice. So that's super close to the image that we fed it, right? Of course, as I mentioned, I want this to be about my subscription or my newsletter subscription rate going up. So we can actually just prompt that using super literal terms to make amendments here. I'm going to say, make this an upward graph showing newsletter subscriber growth to 12,500 subscribers. It's so cool to see how it actually comes up with the code for these graphs and the actual motion design. So we have some text there. Let's see what it came up with here. Nice. So much for our first recreation of the videos I showed you initially. Let's do another one. Now let's head back to Pinterest and do another one. My inspo folder. Personally, I really like this one and I've already saved it to my inspo folder. So I'm just going to drop that into Claude and ask it to turn it into a motion graphic. So here's my example. And here you can see by just drag and dropping it, the image is here. I'm just telling it to change the labels of the bar because they're just an example. I'm going to say change the labels of the bars to Q1 to Q2. Here's one where I drew inspiration from a static graph and turned it into an animation. This one I actually took inspiration from Ali Abdal's video and recreated. All right, let's go ahead and install Remotion on your machine. I will assume that you've already installed Claude Code, which you'll need to be using Remotion and kind of prompting your motion graphics with. Step 1 is to go to remotion.dev/docs, and you'll end up on this page. We're going to copy this and we're going to open our terminal. and we're going to copy paste this in. So now it's going to ask us how we'd like to start our first project, and we're just going to go with blank. You can switch between these using your up and down arrow keys. Let's go ahead with blank, and then we're just going to enter every time we accept something. Yes, we want to add Tailwind CSS. That's what they use to do the motion graphics with, and then yes, and add agent skills to Claude, right? So we want remotion as a skill. So every time I'm just pressing enter as a key here. All right, it's asking us which agents to install, and we're just going to go with the recommended. So enter, installation scope, project, simulate, just accept whatever they're saying here. Proceed with installation, done. Install defined skills. So this is how you can actually call the remotion skill in Claude Code. We're going to go with yes. Perfect. So here you have some commands to call the skill with to start creating your motion graphics. So here we have the name of the project, which is going to be in your home directory. As you can see here, it's called My Video. To look into this file, you can actually go cd as a command in My Video. So just open that folder, and then you can run remotions. Let's open a new tab here, and we're just going to go Claude. Yes, I trust this folder. So before we start, just navigate to My Video, which is the correct folder. Yes, and now npm run dev, and that's basically going to open up remotion in Chrome, so we can actually view whatever motion graphic we're making or creating. Over here, we can see that that command opened up remotion for us, and this is actually where we're going to see every motion graphic that we prompt just be created as a new composition, as they're called. On the left here, we have our compositions. This one doesn't have a name yet. We can rename it, but whenever we start making them, they'll just automatically be added there in remotion. And you can actually view what's being done here as well as render them in the end, but we'll go over that. Now that we've set up remotion on our machine, we can actually
Man, Claude always signing off people so much nowadays. Nowadays it's a bit unbearable. You have to keep signing in over and over again. Seems Claude just keeps signing you out. I don't even know what thought I did something good. Okay, so. I think I probably authorized two things. Let me see. Okay, I did it. Yes. Mhm. I have to come back later.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Sniffing attack. Today we're going to learn how to
she started grabbing.
Come back here later. I've gotten this one installed. Gotten this one installed. Let me ease myself and come back. How do I pause this live? There is no pause anymore. There should be a pause button. Okay. Let me just ease myself. I'll be back. Okay, back to all the things.
To set up a test server and actually start seeing our website properly inside our website. So we can start using CSS, JavaScript. Maybe we take just create login pages and do something inside our website. So I want to mention some.
Okay, so what do I have in my pipeline? Firstly, testing the cake bots backend so I can push. The backend is what I'm still testing, not for the app itself, but for the website. P2P, the store needs a P2P where people can buy engagement from other users. I was supposed to launch last time, but I figured out I would need to test. So today I'm going to be testing properly on the whole OKBot system. I will do 1 hour on OKBot, 1 hour on Real Apps, 1 hour on OKBot, 1 hour on Real Apps. So usually I will have my timer over here, but I think I'll just use my computer to set a clock so I can keep proper track of my time. So this is me over here. I'm going to do 1 hour. So 1 hour for bots want to go. Okay, for media. This is your keyboard backend over here. I've not run the front end. So the new front end, the old front end of bots I built with PHP. So this new bots I'm building with React because of the dynamicness of the platform. There'll be real-time events, like I said. It's gonna have both the P2P, so and across other things. Okay. I noticed last time I logged in yesterday, I did not log out. I'm coming back again and I'm able to log in. So I want to ask because I'm using Codex for this project, I want to ask Codex how long is the what's that thing called again? Session expiry. If I logged in yesterday and I'm able to access it back today, so it's either it saves the cookie and the cookie like lives for a very long time.
Black liquid. Near a huge waterfall, a humanoid alien watches a starship leave the planet before retrieving a pot with a black liquid that it proceeds to drink. Immediately, the liquid begins taking over its body, making its skin black and dissolving its DNA, causing the alien to fall into the water. Its body begins dissolving as well, leaving its DNA to be taken away by the current. In 2089, a team of archaeologists led by Doctors Elizabeth and Charlie find some paintings in a cave in Scotland that are at least 35,000 years old. They match a series of paintings they found all over the world from cultures that couldn't have shared the same information. 2 years later, the starship Prometheus leaves Earth. The whole crew is under cryosleep, and the one in charge of taking care of things is David, a robot. He uses his free time to get to learn more about being human, like playing sports, watching movies, dyeing his hair, and learning ancient languages. He also likes to spy on the crew's dreams. For example, Elizabeth dreams of the time she was a little girl and watched an African tribe bury one of their men. Had to explain to her how each culture had different beliefs when it came to death. After 2 years of traveling, the ship reaches its destination, and David wakes up a whole crew consisting of mercenaries and scientists. Everyone gets time to recover from the side effects and to get some food on their empty stomachs, although Captain Yannick also puts up a Christmas tree because they miss the holidays. This is seen as done by Meredith, the person in charge of overseeing everyone's doing their jobs right. Soon the mission brief begins, and Meredith plays a holographic recording of Peter, the CEO of Wayland Corporation, which is the company funding this expedition. He explains that by the time they watch this, he's already dead, and that David's the closest thing to a son he'll never have. Peter has always wanted to know where we come from and what happens when we die, which is why he funded this expedition when Elizabeth and Charlie came with him with a theory. The doctors take over the floor and explain the paintings they found all over the world depicted a star map that could take them to a planet with its own sun that could sustain life, and that's where they are now. They think this map was left by some aliens Elizabeth calls engineers because her theory said they were the ones that created humankind, although the rest of the crew was skeptical. Moments later, Meredith calls the doctors to come to her private quarters, where she has her own medical pod and self-contained life support. Meredith explains that she doesn't believe those cave scribbles meant anything and she's doing this for Peter, thus it's her responsibility to be sure the money isn't wasted. If the doctors may find life, they're forbidden from making contact, which makes the doctors wonder why they even came then. David spent the last 2 years deconstructing dozens of ancient languages and is sure he can communicate with the engineers, but when he sends a message to the planet, nobody responds. The crew decides it's time to land and the ship goes through the atmosphere, detecting no radio signals or heat sources, which should mean there's no civilization down there. However, Charlie notices some straight lines on the ground that couldn't have happened naturally, and the ship lands on that spot. The crew gets ready to go on the expedition and David wears a suit even if...
So I just asked Codex right now. Apparently, it seems the session was to last for 30 days. So I logged in yesterday. Okay, I logged in the day before yesterday. I created the session. So my session was created on the 1st of August, 10 p.m. at night. So it has not been revoked. I would be online. I would have the session running till 31st of August, Remaining at inspection approximately 28.5 days. So remain logged in overnight is period, okay? So would it be a vulnerability flaw to be logged in for like, let me see. I mean, Facebook, you can log in once on your Facebook or Instagram and it stays there for months. Is there any need to make them log in each time? Um, Let me see. People would really. Okay, let's keep being logged in anyway. It's up to them to always log out. So if they log in, I mean, since they'll be doing their PTP and the rest, logging in all the time. Okay, it's good, fine. Don't need to touch it. Okay, so I'm logged in now. I want to start hitting up the operations. So how I build my systems is I will create what we call an operational manual. So as an engineer, when someone brings up a project, or talking about a project, I have a gig. I had a job coming today. A company reached out to me over the weekend to build their system, their portal for them. It's a real estate firm. So I need to call the management of the real estate firm to get like, whoa. And I thought I'll give them a call by 10. Okay, I think I will just do that. Oh, okay, I think I'll have my personal assistant do that. I'll have my personal assistant do that. I'm not with my phone over here now to test. But it depends on what they would want actually. Let me do a call. Let me just drop 2 calls, then I'll be back. Okay, I don't think this job. Okay, I think I need to dial up this number. Okay, let me mute my microphone. I think I'm still streaming, so. I'm back. My 1 hour now has been deducted a bit. I reached out to the company and that's that thing with working with me though. That's it's not just about closing the deals. It's if the people really knows what they want to build. Turns out the clients I'm supposed to be building the stuff for. Like they've spoken to a couple of developers, and it seems the developers they have spoken to. Anyway, that's them. Let's head back to the jobs we have currently doing at the moment, and let's keep building upon it as an available for some time. Okay, so back to what I'm saying. Okay, um, operational manner. I want you to see it this way, all right? Imagine. Let me quickly make a post on my what's this thing called again? Instagram. On my Instagram, let me make a post quickly. Let me just announce my glasses are not here. Okay, let me make an announcement. Hi, I'm now streaming. So I'm streaming directly on YouTube. If you want to learn software engineering or you're a software developer or engineer, you want to get very good at your job, I am streaming. So my streaming is me building systems. As I stream, I tell you about the architecture. I tell you how I write my manuals. Like right now, I built a back end, but I'm yet to integrate it totally with the front end. So I'm going to show you how to actually build systems properly and how to test them. So if you want to get better at software engineering, you want mentorship, you want to be able to see somebody doing the job in real time, this is me over here. I'm streaming right now on YouTube. I stream it if I want to be streaming every day. So we have a countdown. It's like 1 hour. We do something within 1 hour. We ship. We could have questions. You ask questions. You get to like there's a 15 minutes stroke 30 minutes break after every 1 hour. So people who are streaming can ask questions and then we lock in again. So if you're watching this video, want to join, the link would be on my WhatsApp channel. It's called Code FM Africa. So I will be available as well to just share it with you. Or if you check my bio, you'll see an Instagram channel. Join the channel and I will post the live streams over there. So let me share this on my Instagram. Hi, I'm now streaming. So I'm streaming there. So I'm going to give this a caption. Okay, so what is an operational manual? Now let's assume you're a software engineer, right? And somebody tells you, I want you to build this kind of system for me. Now, what you would usually do is 2 steps. I'm coming. Okay, so I think I should stop using vibecode and start using vibe engineer. Because I'm an engineer with the vibe. Okay, so let's go and say join us as we vibe engineer system. Okay. So I'm going to use capture on the dannyokec. dannyokec, vibe code, web engineer. Sweet. Okay. Okay. So right now, let's get back to work. Now let's talk about what I was saying before, operational manual. So like the first OKEC bot I built that one like solo alone. I didn't get to use AI, and so most of what I built was just me. So this new one I'm building right now, I'm building it with AI, and it's gonna be far better than the one I built myself. Why? Because I need to do two major things. The first thing I do is what I call features. I list all the features of what I want to build. The second one is called operational manual. So when I build a feature, and I start writing stories around how that feature can be used. Say for instance, I have an operational manual for connecting of node. So what does connecting of node mean? Imagine you're logged into this computer, like you installed OKECBot and you put OKECBot on this computer and you've logged in, right? Now, imagine you want to now give someone else access. So someone calls you and says, please, can I use your Canva account or your Figma account? Or I want to go through a particular record. Now, you don't want to give this person your username and your password. So what you can do is you can go to OKECBot, you can create what we call like a browser, which is like a bot. You log into that account, you save it. Now, all you need to do is to create an API key and point that API key to that particular browser. So it's actually called like we call it like a worker. We have two kinds of key. We have a worker key and a master key. The master key is the one you log into your computer. You can use to create a lot of accounts. The worker key is the one you can create it and allow it to have access to certain browsers. Now you give that worker key to your friend, your co-worker. If this is an enterprise, a business, you can give it to an employee. So that means a business could now share login detail, can now share logged in sessions with their employees so they can do their job without actually handing over that password to the employee. So when I thought about this whole operations, I thought about it like this. A user logs into the OKECBot account. After he logs into the OKECBot account, the user now had to like click on API key and click on create key. On the create key, he had between master key and a worker key. He created a worker key. And after creating the worker key, it was not there, obviously, right? So the user came back again, logged into his OKECBot account, clicked a particular browser he's been logged into, and and on that browser. So when he on the browser, he logged into the website which he wants that person to have access to. And after logging into the website, he now synced the session. That means everything you logged in now is now being backed up on the cloud. So he logged in back again to OKECBot, opened that worker key, and gave the worker key access to that particular browser. After which he told the person to use OKECBot and enter that worker key API. When the person entered the worker key API, the person now saw the browser that he has been given access to. The person opened the browser and was able to use it as if the other person used AnyDesk or TeamViewer to log in remotely. Because if you use Team Viewer or AnyDesk, while you're typing in the password, the other person can actually see your keystroke. Right? If they have a keystroke logger, they can see the password you're putting in. Okay, so but on OKECBot, you will log in on your own side and then they can now have access from where they are. And now, should you not want them to have access again, you can log into your OKECBot and destroy that session. So wherever they are like this, it just automatically destroys. The browser will just close and everything about the session will just wipe. All right, then you can also maybe log into the browser itself and like maybe log out totally. So even if they try to back up in between sessions, which we feel could happen, but you logging out again from the main account now destroys whatever way they can come back to that account again. So it simply means now that a company can have multiple accounts and their employees can use those multiple accounts just by the admin creating different worker APIs. So this whole thing I just said now, you see, it's a beautiful future. If I'm to develop this myself, it would probably take me some time.
If he doesn't
So
need it, because
what I could do is to now write what we call a feature, a feature list. First feature list, ability to create master API key and worker API key. Then another feature, self-destruct. That means you have destroyed the key or you have revoked the key. I want everywhere that particular key is being used, it should automatically destroy the sessions on that computer. The moment the person just opens it up and is connected to internet, it should delete it. Right. So now these are the features I had written down. Now, so right now the backend, most of the backend is done, but the front end is now where we have, the onion. So today I'm doing all the testing and I'm also doing integration. So what I just described to you right now, I want to now go into integration. So if I look up right now, I have OKBot here. This is OKBot over here. This is another GitHub project I was working. So from here to here is the VS Code on OKBot. This camera is not too clear. I'll get a better one. But if the camera was very, very clear, you could see that this is OKBot as a whole. This is the mind map, this is the workflow, and this is my QA testing app. So right now, I am done with the first one. The first pipeline was registration. So I've tested the registration. In fact, I'll register another account again. I'm supposed to test everything that has to do with registration. So the way we do it is we test everything and then we keep modifying, right? So let me just head back to work.
because he was designed to blend in among humans. The group takes a series of vehicles to visit a dome-like structure that geologist Fifield can't tell if it's natural or not, but he's sure it's hollow. Once they get inside, Fifield sends 2 special probes that map the whole area, allowing them to find their way through a series of corridors. When they go deeper, they find a source of water that is heated by the sunlight, and the CO2 levels are acceptable. While outside it's completely toxic, it seems inside here it's breathable. Charlie assumes these aliens have been terraforming and takes the risk of removing his helmet, confirming it's completely fine. Then everyone removes their helmets to keep exploring, and David finds a wall with a weird goo and various symbols on it, which he activates thanks to his language knowledge. This causes a sudden hologram of running figures to appear through the corridors, and the crew follows them until they find the body of an alien lying next to the door that killed them. You can tell things are getting dangerous and a geologist won't be needed, so he and biologist Milburn decide to go back to the ship. While the doctors inspect the body, David manages to open the door, and they find the alien's head on the other side in a great conservation state. The rest of the crew finds more bodies, indicating the species is extinct. This room has worms in it, showing life is possible here, but also a monolithic statue of a humanoid head, murals on the ceiling, and a bunch of stone cylinders. David notices the cylinders are sweating and soon one of them begins to expel a black organic substance. Elizabeth doesn't notice because she's looking at the murals, which have started to change. She thinks they've affected the atmosphere in the room and they need to leave, so she and Charlie begin to bag the head to take away while David steals one of the cylinders as he comes to the conclusion that the cave is a tomb. At that moment, Yannick discovers there's a dangerous storm incoming and calls the doctors to warn them. Meredith gives them 15 minutes to make it back before she closes the ramp. The crew runs out of the cave and drives as fast as possible, making it back to the ship just in time. However, the alien head falls from the vehicle in the process and Elizabeth goes back to grab it, causing the storm to hit her and enter the ship. Charlie tries to rescue her by driving the vehicle through the wind, but he ends up getting stuck as well. And in the end, they must be pulled away by David with a set of wires. After the crew begins working on decontaminating their bodies in the hangar, only to discover Milburn and Fifield haven't come back yet. It turns out the 2 scientists are lost inside the cave. Yannick manages to contact them to explain they can't pick them up because of the storm, meaning they'll need to wait until morning. Meanwhile, the team sterilizes the head and a quick scan reveals it's not an exoskeleton. It's a helmet. When they open it, they find a humanoid alien head inside with new cells changing on its forehead, so they decide to run a stem line into his brain to make it think it's alive. The trick works and the face starts gesturing, but things go wrong quickly and the overstimulation ends up making it explode. Elizabeth takes a closer look at the sample she took from the head and is delighted to discover that its DNA matches a person's, meaning her theory had been right and these guys created the human race. Meanwhile, David goes to offer an update to a private sleep pod that holds a mysterious person. Nobody else knows about it except for Meredith, who finally demands David tell her what the person said. David only says they were asked to try harder. Then David goes to inspect the cylinder he brought in private, and inside he finds a bunch of capsules with a black liquid inside. This gives him an idea, and he decides to visit Charlie to share a drink with him as they wonder how far they go to get the answers they want. Afterward, Charlie joins Elizabeth in the room and she gets to share the news about the DNA, so they celebrate by getting frisky. In the cave, Milburn and Fifield are looking at a creepy pile of alien bodies when they suddenly get a call from Yannick, who warns them that the scanner found signs of a life form nearby. The scientists begin to worry, but just like that, the ping on the scanner disappears, and Yannick blames it on a glitch. Eventually, Milburn and Fifield come across the room with the monolith and find the black liquid coming out from the cylinders. To their surprise, they find a reptile-type alien swimming in the liquid, and when Milburn comes closer, the creature gets attached to his arm to try to break it. Fifield cuts the creature off to help him, only to get the alien's corrosive fluid sprayed on his helmet, which eats through the plastic and reaches his face. While Fifield agonizes in pain, the creature gets inside Milburn's suit and kills him. The next morning, Charlie wakes up feeling unwell and notices there's something weird in his eyes. Yannick calls everyone to inform them the storm's gone, but he can't make contact with the scientists, so they'll go looking for them. His men couldn't find a glitch on the scan either, thus David promises he'll find the probe and fix it. However, while the group searches the cave, David stays behind on purpose and takes his own path, sending a recording of what he sees to Meredith. He finds another room full of thousands of cylinders and alien armor, then takes a corridor to a chamber with a bunch of cryosleep capsules. David cuts Meredith off before activating a machine in the center of the room that shows him holograms of the engineers looking at a star map that includes Earth. When the show is over, David notices one of the cryosleep capsules is glowing because it still has a live engineer inside. Meanwhile, Charlie keeps tripping during their search and Elizabeth notices he's sick, but he keeps going anyway. When they finally find Milburn's body, they come closer to inspect it and cause the little reptile alien to jump out and slither away. Yet Fifield is nowhere to be seen. At that moment, Charlie starts to feel really sick, so Elizabeth asks everyone to go back in order to quarantine Charlie. By the time they return to the ship, Charlie's skin is starting to turn black, and Meredith meets them at that hangar with a flamethrower in hand because she doesn't want Charlie aboard. Yannick and Elizabeth start arguing with her, but Charlie thinks he has no future and walks to Meredith on purpose to make her toast him to the ground while Elizabeth watches in agony. Moments later, the crew is quarantined and David runs tests on Elizabeth to check Charlie didn't infect her. To their surprise, the scan shows her to be 3 months pregnant, which is impossible because
So I want to let me see my usage. I'm thinking of switching from codecs right now to Claude on this project. Let me see my usage over here. Okay, I have one available reset. Okay, let me finish up. I know that this codex would likely finish up right now.
3 months ago she had been under cryosleep. The fetus has a creepy weird shape as well, and Elizabeth wants it out. But David points out they don't have the means or personnel to perform such surgery. Suddenly, Elizabeth's abdomen being hurting terribly, so David gives her some medicine to make her sleep. Some minutes later, a few crew members wake Elizabeth up in order to take her to a cryosleep capsule until they can decide what to do with her fetus. Elizabeth refuses to keep this thing and fights everyone off before running away until she finds Meredith's medical pod. She asks for a cesarean, but for some reason the pod is only calibrated for men and can't do it, so instead Elizabeth asks for the extraction of a foreign body. The machine accepts this and gives her some anesthetics, but they aren't strong enough and she still feels unbearable pain as a claw removes the strange fetus from her body. The fetus immediately pops and a creepy alien comes out, which begins shaking its tentacles to try to free itself. Elizabeth has to stand the attack while the machine closes her wound, but as soon as the stitches are done, she leaves the pod and locks the alien inside it, leaving it to be put to sleep by the anesthetics. In the meantime, Yannick notices something weird standing in front of the ship and one of the crew members goes to check. It turns out to be a mutated Fifield, who begins attacking all the people in the hangar. A fierce fight begins among all the men, and since bullets don't do anything to Fifield, they end up using the flamethrower to kill him. Elizabeth wanders around the ship until she makes it to the infirmary to ask for medicine, and there she's surprised to discover Peter is still alive. He was the guy in the extra cryosleep David had been talking to in the medical pod at Binford. Peter wants to meet his maker directly and demand answers, so David will take him to the engineer he found in the cave. Elizabeth tries to explain this planet is dangerous and not what they thought, but her warnings are ignored. Unwilling to give up, Elizabeth pushes through her pain and suits up to go back into the cave. Yannick finds her and points out this can't be the engineer's home planet. The cave is probably some military installation where they were making a black liquid as a weapon of mass destruction that leaked and killed them. Yannick wants to return to Earth, but Elizabeth convinces him to wait until she gets in contact with her the remaining living engineer. Peter is getting ready to leave too when Meredith comes to try to stop him from dying in some hole as she calls him father, but Peter ignores her warnings as well. When the crew reaches the cave, David tells everyone to take off their helmets because he knows the disease isn't in the air, implying he was the one that put the black liquid in Charlie's drink. The crew reaches the new room with the thousands of cylinders and David calls it a cargo hold. This new scan angle makes Yannick and Meredith realize this isn't a cave, it's a starship. David activates the machine while he explains the engineers were in the process of leaving for Earth when they lost control of the black liquid that killed them. The last engineer is woken up, and Elizabeth tries to ask some questions, but Peter makes one of his mercenaries shut her up with a hit before he begins asking philosophical questions of his own. David translates into Proto-Indo-European, but the engineer ends up feeling unwell and notices there's something weird in his eyes. Yannick calls everyone to inform them the storm's gone, but he can't make contact with the scientist, so they'll go looking for them. His men couldn't find a glitch on the scan either, but David promises he'll find the probe and fix it. However, while the group searches the cave, David stays behind on purpose and takes his own path, sending a recording of what he sees to Meredith. He finds another room full of thousands of cylinders and alien armor, then takes a corridor to a chamber with a bunch of cryosleep capsules. David cuts Meredith off before activating a machine in the center of the room that shows him holograms of the engineers looking at a star map that includes Earth. When the show is over, David notices one of the cryosleep capsules is glowing because it still has a live engineer inside. Meanwhile, Charlie keeps tripping during their search and Elizabeth notices he's sick, but he keeps going anyway. When they finally find Milburn's body, they come closer to inspect it and cause the little reptile alien to jump out and slither away. Yet Fifield is nowhere to be seen. At that moment, Charlie starts to feel really sick, so Elizabeth asks everyone to go back in order to quarantine Charlie. By the time they return to the ship, Charlie's skin is starting to turn black, and Meredith meets them at the hangar with a flamethrower in hand because she doesn't want Charlie aboard. Yannick and Elizabeth start arguing with her, but Charlie thinks he has no future and walks to Meredith on purpose to make her toast him to the ground while Elizabeth watches in agony. Moments later, the crew is quarantined and David runs tests on Elizabeth to check Charlie didn't infect her. To their surprise, the scan shows her to be 3 months pregnant, which is impossible because 3 months ago she had been under cryosleep. The fetus has a creepy weird shape as well and Elizabeth wants it out, but David points out they don't have the means or personnel to perform such surgery. Suddenly Elizabeth's abdomen begins hurting terribly, so David gives her some medicine to make her sleep. Some minutes later, a few crew members wake Elizabeth up in order to take her to a cryosleep capsule until they can decide what to do with her fetus. Elizabeth refuses to keep this thing and fights everyone off before running away until she finds Meredith's medical pod. She asks for a cesarean, but for some reason the pod is only calibrated for men and can't do it, so instead Elizabeth asks for the extraction of a foreign body. The machine accepts this and gives her some anesthetics, but they aren't strong enough and she still feels unbearable pain as a claw removes the strange fetus from her body. The fetus immediately pops and a creepy alien comes out, which begins shaking its tentacles to try to free itself. Elizabeth has to stand the attack while the machine closes her wound, but as soon as the stitches are done, she leaves the pod and locks the alien inside it, leaving it to be put to sleep by the anesthetics. In the meantime, Yannick notices something weird standing in front of the ship and one of the crew members goes to check. It turns out to be a mutated Fifield, who begins attacking all the people in the hangar. A fierce fight begins among all the men, and since bullets don't do anything to Fifield, they end up using the flamethrower to kill him. Elizabeth wanders around the ship until she makes it to the infirmary to ask for medicine, and there she's surprised to discover Peter is still alive. He was the guy in the extra cryosleep David had been talking to when the medical pod had been for him. Peter wants to meet his maker directly and demand answers, so David will take him to the engineer he found in the cave. Elizabeth tries to explain this planet is dangerous and not what they thought, but her warnings are ignored. Unwilling to give up, Elizabeth pushes through her pain and suits up to go back into the cave. Yannick finds her and points out this can't be the engineer's home planet. The cave is probably some military installation where they were making that black liquid as a weapon of mass destruction that leaked and killed them. Yannick wants to return to Earth, but Elizabeth convinces him to wait until she gets in contact with the remaining living engineer. Peter is getting ready to leave too when Meredith comes to try to stop him from dying in some hole as she calls him father, but Peter ignores her warnings as well. When the crew reaches the cave, David tells everyone to take off their helmets because he knows the disease isn't in the air, implying he was the one that put the black liquid in Charlie's drink. The crew reaches the new room with the thousands of cylinders and David calls it a cargo hold. This new scan angle makes Yannick and Meredith realize this isn't a cave, it's a starship. David activates the machine while he explains the engineers were in the process of leaving for Earth when they lost control of the black liquid that killed them. The last engineer is woken up, and Elizabeth tries to ask some questions, but Peter makes one of his mercenaries shut her up with a hit before he begins asking philosophical questions of his own. David translates into Proto-Indo-European, but the engineer reacts by taking David's head and using it to kill Peter. Then he pushes Elizabeth away to kill the mercenaries that are wasting bullets on him. Back on the ship, Meredith sees Peter's death through David's eyes and orders Yannick to get things ready to leave the planet. Elizabeth runs away as the engineer activates its own ship to fly to Earth as well. This opens lots of areas on the ground, and Elizabeth jumps through them as she calls Yannick to tell him to stop the engineer or the black liquid will make it to Earth and destroy humanity. Prometheus isn't a battleship, and Meredith thinks they should leave without doing anything. But Yannick ignores her and orders his pilots to warm up the ion propulsion, which will transform the ship into a bullet. Meredith runs out of the ship, and Yannick gives permission to his pilots to do the same, but the pilots respect their captain and would rather go down with him. In mere seconds, both ships are crashing in the air, successfully stopping the engineer from leaving. However, the ships now fall to the ground, and Elizabeth and Meredith have to run away before they get crushed. Meredith isn't fast enough and dies, but Elizabeth manages to survive by finding cover next to a rock. Then Elizabeth goes into Prometheus to get some supplies and hears some noises deeper inside. After grabbing an axe to defend herself, she goes to investigate and discovers her alien offspring has escaped the medical pod and has grown into a huge size. At that moment, David contacts Elizabeth and tells her to run, but it's too late. The engineer shows up and pushes Elizabeth against the wall to kill her. Elizabeth thinks fast and opens the door behind her, which releases the alien offspring that immediately jumps on the engineer. As Elizabeth runs away, her offspring thrusts an ovipositor down the engineer's throat and subdues him. Outside the ship, Elizabeth's having a breakdown when he's suddenly contacted by David, who explains the engineers have more ships underground and he can pilot them. Elizabeth goes to rescue both David's head and body.
Okay, so I have my first dashboard ready. So this dashboard was, built because of the operational manual. So the operational manual already said how everything would be used. So from here moving forward, I would have to start testing every layer of the system. So for instance, it just gave me the overview. Good morning, Daniel. Everything you need to prepare, connect, and operate. Okay, but for one command, verify your email to unlock. Okay, good. Okay, that one is good because I did not verify that one before now. Okay, so this design layout looks a bit like, looks AI a bit, oh, no, I don't think it looks AI completely. Okay, let me keep building. So I did registration. I got the email to verify the registration, but the second thing I had, was the fact that I wasn't able to verify. So let me get to work.
But she has a request.
My 1 hour is almost done. So once it's 1 hour now, I'll have to head over to Real Naps. I want to be making slow and steady, growth.
Instead of returning to Earth, she wants to go to the engineer's home planet, and David accepts even if he doesn't understand why she's so desperate for answers. Before David and Elizabeth leave the planet on an alien ship, Elizabeth returns to Prometheus one last time to send a message to Earth explaining what happened.
Life is the greatest scam ever perpetuated, and it's killing us. See, there's nothing broken about this system. It's working perfectly because that's how it was designed. The U.S. has the lowest life expectancy among wealthy countries, despite spending twice as much on healthcare. This is the modern human starter pack. It comes with the latest everything. Gucci frames, a smartwatch telling you all of your health measurements, the new iPhone equipped with ChatGPT answering every question that you might have, listening to your favorite health podcast that you won't do anything about, eating processed food and getting fake energy. Listen, you are a skeleton of who you are meant to be, and the truth.
Most people wake up each day assuming reality is fixed, a rigid structure governed by effort, chance, and repetition. They move through life believing that results are earned only through hard work or inherited by luck. What few realize is that they are already swimming in a vast, invisible quantum field, a limitless sea of potential where every possibility already exists, waiting for a signal strong enough to collapse it into form. Reality, in its purest sense, is not something that happens to you. It's something that emerges from you, yet almost no one is aware of this power, and fewer still know how to use it. The idea that we exist in a quantum field, a limitless sea of energetic potential, seems abstract at first, almost too mystical to integrate into daily life. But it's not philosophy, it's physics. This invisible field is not something outside of you, it is you. Your consciousness moves through it constantly, shaping it, bending it, influencing it. Every thought, emotion, breath, and belief sends a signal into this field, and like a tuning fork resonating through still air, the field responds with precision. The external world, then, is not an independent structure. It is a reflection, a reading of your internal state. Most people unknowingly send distorted signals into this responsive field. They try to override their present experience with sheer mental effort, repeating affirmations they don't believe, visualizing realities that contradict their core feelings, or forcing positivity while tension still grips the body. This isn't alignment, it's friction. The field doesn't respond to what you say. It responds to the totality of who you are in a given moment. Words are surface-level vibrations, but the body, the breath, the subconscious, all of these speak a deeper language. And that language is what the quantum field listens to most intently. Becoming aware of the field starts with a shift in perception. It's not about chasing mystical experiences or decoding complex theories. It's about noticing the interplay between your inner world and what unfolds around you. Begin to observe how your mood shapes your day, how certain thoughts seem to magnetize certain experiences, how clarity within often leads to clarity without. These aren't coincidences, they're feedback loops. The field is always responding, always reflecting. The more coherent your signal, the more precise the reflection. Instead of trying to dominate external circumstances, train yourself to read your own frequency. What are you really broadcasting right now? Pause. Feel. Not the words in your mind, but the energy in your chest, the tension in your spine, the rhythm of your breath. Are you in a state of ease or resistance, presence or worry? Most people skip this step, rushing toward action. But manifestation does not begin with action. It begins with being. Tuning your internal state before you act ensures that whatever you do next is aligned and effective. Raising your vibration, then, is not a mystical leap. It's a conscious return. A return to stillness, to awareness, to presence. You don't have to perform. You don't have to perfect. You simply begin by noticing. In the quantum field, observation itself is power. And when you observe yourself with honesty, curiosity, and softness, you reclaim the ability to reshape your reality from the inside out. Once awareness of the field takes root, a deeper truth emerges. Your reality doesn't form independently. It forms through your observation of it. The quantum field exists as infinite potential, but that potential only collapses into physical experience when observed. This is where ancient wisdom and modern science intersect. The quantum world waits to take shape until you look, feel, expect, and believe. Reality, then, is not fixed. It is fluid, shaped by the one who watches, shaped by you. But the observer is not limited to your conscious attention. It extends far deeper. The subconscious mind, running quietly beneath your awareness, is the dominant observer. It's the part of you that never sleeps, that holds your deepest stories, traumas, expectations, and beliefs. While your conscious mind might affirm abundance, your subconscious might still be rehearsing scarcity. While your lips declare trust, your body may still be bracing for loss. The field listens to the total signal, and the subconscious carries the loudest tone. This is why so many people feel blocked despite their efforts. They're speaking one reality while embodying another. Understanding the observer effect requires more than intellectual curiosity. It demands self-honesty. What do you truly expect from life when no one is watching? What outcome do you rehearse emotionally? You may want love, but do you expect rejection? You may desire freedom, but are you braced for disappointment? Every micro moment of expectation is a small observation, and each of those subtle acts of observing either collapses a reality in alignment with your desire, or it reinforces the one you're trying to escape. The heart of quantum manifestation lies in this precision. It's not about thinking harder or wanting more. It's about becoming aware of what part of you is observing. Are you watching your world from the lens of fear or faith, from expansion or contraction? When your inner observer shifts, your external experience begins to follow. This is why alignment isn't just mental, it's emotional, physiological, and energetic. The field does not mirror what you want, it mirrors what you consistently observe through your being. Scientific studies have even revealed how the body itself becomes an instrument of observation. The heart emits a powerful electromagnetic field, stronger than the brain's, and this field interacts directly with the quantum field around you. When the heart and brain are coherent, your observation becomes clear, undistorted, magnetic. Coherence isn't mystical, it's measurable. It occurs when your thoughts and emotions move in harmony, when there is unity between what you believe and what you feel. In that unity, your signal becomes sharp. The wave collapses with speed and accuracy. Reality shifts in kind. So to shape the wave, consciously, deliberately, you must become the observer your desired timeline needs. Not just in your words, but in your state. You do not manifest from logic alone. You manifest from resonance. When your subconscious, your heart, your breath, and your expectations harmonize, the field has no choice but to reflect that frequency back. In this way, the wave collapses not by force, but by clarity. You don't push reality into being, you embody it into form. When the observer sharpens and the signal becomes clear, the next step is no longer about watching, it's about becoming. Observation collapses the wave, yes, but embodiment sustains the new timeline. You are not simply looking at a better life through the glass of intention. You are meant to step into it. To do that, you must align with the frequency of that life, not as an idea, but as a way of being. This is where manifestation stops being theory and starts becoming truth lived in real time. Most people wait to feel abundant until the money arrives, to feel loved once a partner appears, to feel healthy only after symptoms vanish. Yet the quantum field does not respond to waiting, it responds to embodiment. To receive the experience of your desired reality, you must become its frequency before it arrives. That means feeling the emotion of the future now, not later. When you act, think, and feel as the version of yourself who already lives in that timeline, the field recognizes it as truth and responds accordingly. This is not about pretending or playing a role. It's about tuning into an existing channel. Think of reality like a vast orchestra, each timeline a unique melody. If you want to hear a certain song, you don't demand the band play it. You simply tune your instrument to the key it's being played in. Your thoughts are strings, your emotions are rhythm, your actions the melody. When all three align, the song of your future self begins to play through your life. And it can begin with the smallest choices. Generosity becomes a signal of abundance. Vulnerability becomes a doorway to love. Rest becomes a declaration of worth. You don't need grand gestures to shift frequencies. A single breath taken in presence, a kind thought held with intention, a courageous act that reflects your future self. These are not meaningless. They are the brushstrokes painting your reality onto the canvas of the field. Every moment is a vote for the timeline you wish to inhabit. Ancient traditions have long hinted at this truth. You become what you behold, said mystics. The alchemists of old spoke not of external gold, but of internal transmutation, turning lower states into higher ones through intention and awareness. The same principle governs quantum manifestation. It is not the material that changes first, it is the self. When you shift who you are being, what you are having inevitably follows. The quantum field does not resist this process, it is designed for it. Becoming the frequency is the ultimate surrender. It's choosing to live as if, without waiting for proof. It's stepping into the role before the stage has been built. And here lies the secret. When you stop trying to get and start practicing being, reality begins to move. Timelines bend, possibilities collapse. What once felt far becomes familiar. You are no longer trying to pull something into existence. You are breathing life into what was always already possible. Stepping into the frequency of your desired reality marks a powerful shift. But holding that frequency requires something even more challenging for most, releasing control. After embodying the state of already having, the next test is whether you can trust the process long enough for the quantum field to reflect it. Many fall into the trap of slipping back into force. They try to accelerate results, micromanage outcomes, or
The 1 hour I had set for kickbox is done already. The anointing is the 1 hour is done, but I'm still just around the verification of email. Okay, a new one gets sent now. I don't know why this ZAMP is having a problem. If you want to register it, then send it immediately. Okay, so stepping out for like few minutes. I'll be back in the next 10 minutes. I'll use this opportunity to ask questions for anyone who wants to ask questions. So I'll be setting up a timer soon. So this timer would help us to ask questions. If you have any question, I will leave the section open so you can ask the question and I will reply. I'm starting a new timer again. I think this angle is better for me. I do well when I walk in darkness. That whole thing with lights wasn't good for me. Just I think I would come here a bit. Okay, like this. Okay, but I think it's better. Wait, this way. Okay. I think I prefer it this way. Let me see the lights. Please. Just a bit slightly up. Can't see my screen. Oh, not the keyboard. Okay. Okay, good.
Constantly check if the manifestation is arriving. That very grasping becomes the interference. Control is not alignment, it's resistance disguised as responsibility. The human mind is conditioned to believe that value comes from struggle. Cultural systems reward effort and associate worth with exhaustion. In this paradigm, surrender seems like laziness and trust feels like risk. Yet in the quantum field, the opposite is true. The more you try to push reality into form, the more you signal to the field that you do not believe it's already yours. Force creates a fragmented signal, and the result is delay, distortion, or complete disconnection. Letting go is not passive, it is active participation in allowing. Releasing control means returning to presence. It's a conscious decision to shift your attention from the timeline you are escaping to the one you are choosing. In that space, effort transforms into energy management. Rather than pouring your willpower into chasing outcomes, you invest it in regulating your state, your breath, your nervous system, your thought patterns. These internal alignments speak far louder to the field than desperate action ever could. Surrender is not about doing nothing, it is about doing the right things from the right state of being. Letting go also means relinquishing the timeline. The quantum field works outside of linear constraints. What appears as delay is often a necessary unfolding. Trusting the unseen choreography behind your desire doesn't just require faith, it requires emotional maturity. You stop asking, when will it come? And start asking, how deeply can I embody it now? In doing so, you move from control to co-creation, from being a manipulator of outcomes to a master of vibration. And it is there, in the quiet release of needing, that the field begins to move. Letting go of control invites stillness, but stillness often exposes the loops running beneath awareness. Once the grip loosens, the familiar voices of old patterns begin to rise. Thoughts like, it's not working, I'm not enough, or nothing ever changes, emerge like background noise returning after a moment of silence. These mental and emotional loops are not random. They are the echoes of timelines lived for years. If left unchallenged, they magnetize the same results. To manifest something new, the cycle must be broken, and that begins with conscious disruption. Disruption doesn't mean destruction. It means intervention. A subtle, intentional shift that breaks the rhythm of the old and introduces a new signal. The subconscious mind thrives on familiarity. It prefers predictable discomfort over uncertain change. So it builds routines of emotion, thought, and reaction. You may wake up feeling anxious without knowing why. You may sabotage opportunities that mirror your worth. Not because you don't want better, but because your nervous system hasn't yet made peace with a new identity. The field responds not only to your vision, but to the habits of being you carry each day. Breaking the pattern starts with observation. When the same emotion rises again, scarcity, fear, doubt, pause. Don't react as you always have. Instead, create space. Even one conscious breath is a disruption. A moment of non-reaction introduces choice, and choice introduces power. Ask yourself, is this pattern aligned with the timeline I want to live in? If the answer is no, redirect, not by force, but by intention. Every time you choose presence over reaction, the pattern weakens. And as it weakens, the field begins to reorient. Reprogramming begins where awareness meets repetition. You don't have to rewrite every belief overnight. You only need to behave differently in small, consistent ways that reflect your chosen frequency. If you want to be abundant, take an action that feels generous. If you want to be confident, speak even when your voice shakes. If you want to be loved, offer the kind of warmth you crave. These micro-movements speak to the subconscious in a language it understands, lived experience. Beliefs aren't changed through logic alone. They change when new behaviors prove them obsolete. In ancient traditions, the path of transformation often involves symbolic acts, a crossing of fire, a letting go of the old self, a ceremonial rebirth. While modern life may not carry such visible rituals, the essence remains. Each time you act in defiance of your former limitation, you engage in sacred disruption. You declare to the field, I am no longer available for the old frequency. That declaration is not loud or dramatic. It is quiet, steady, embodied, and the field listens. Disrupting the pattern is not about rejecting who you were, but about creating space for who you are becoming. The old version of you isn't wrong. It was necessary. It learned, protected, adapted. But now, that version can rest. A new identity is forming, one step, one breath, one choice at a time. And as those choices accumulate, the signal changes. The quantum field, ever responsive, begins to organize reality around the new rhythm. What once felt impossible becomes inevitable, not through force, but through transformation. The moment you begin to disrupt the old pattern, a new identity starts to emerge, one not defined by past experiences, but by present alignment. But this transformation cannot survive as a temporary state or a momentary breakthrough. For manifestation to take root, the frequency must become a lifestyle. Living as the signal means turning coherence into a consistent way of being. It's no longer something you visit on good days. It becomes your baseline. The future you want doesn't arrive by accident. It is maintained by rhythm. Rhythm in this context is the daily devotion to your chosen frequency. You no longer rely solely on peak moments of insight to shift your reality. Instead, you return again and again to the practices that tune your signal. Mindful breath, emotional regulation, clear intention, aligned action. Just as a musician doesn't tune their instrument once and expect perfection forever, you must recalibrate continuously. Coherence is not a destination, it's a returning. And every return deepens your resonance with the timeline you desire. This rhythm finds its most natural home in the body. The body remembers what the mind forgets. A slouched posture may signal defeat before a word is spoken. A clenched jaw may reveal fear more than any spoken affirmation. Living as the signal means bringing your body into the practice, not as a passive vessel, but as an intelligent, expressive extension of your frequency. When you walk, speak, eat, rest, or work, ask, is this how the version of me who already has it would move? You don't fake it, you become it, gradually, truthfully, somatically. Relationships, too, become mirrors for your signal. You will notice how certain dynamics fall away, not because you've changed others, but because you've changed what you resonate with. Coherence attracts coherence. As you hold your vibration with integrity, others who vibrate at that level begin to appear. You become a tuning fork for your environment. This is not coincidence. It is quantum law. The field organizes itself around the clearest signal in the space. And when you live as that signal, you not only attract new timelines, you elevate the entire field around you. It's important to understand that living as the signal is not about perfection. Doubt will visit. The old self will knock. Fear may whisper. But your job is not to be immune. It is to return. You are not seeking to be unshakable. You are learning how to recalibrate with grace. The power is not in never falling, but in how you rise. One breath, one thought, one act of awareness brings you back to center. Over time, this process becomes automatic, not because life is easier, but because your signal is stronger. To live as the signal is to stop waiting for permission. You cease asking the world to prove to you that it's safe to trust, safe to dream, safe to expand. Instead, you become the proof. Every moment becomes a message to the field. This is who I am now. And the field, as always, reflects you back. In that reflection, the timeline you once imagined begins to take form, not because you forced it, but because you finally matched it. Quantum manifestation is not hidden behind layers of complexity. It is astonishingly simple. So simple, in fact, that the mind resists it. But those who learn to align, to regulate, and to embody coherence find that reality bends faster than expected. You don't manifest from wishing, you manifest from being. In that knowing, the path becomes not something to follow, but something to live. Choose the signal, collapse the wave, become the observer, and reality will mirror you back in ways no effort ever could. You know how sometimes life feels like it's stuck on repeat? Same patterns, same emotions, same energy showing up no matter how much you try to change your circumstances. The truth is, energy doesn't shift because of what happens around you. It shifts because of what happens within you. Small improvements, done with awareness, can quietly rearrange your entire frequency. Walk more. It sounds almost too ordinary to change anything, right? Yet that's exactly where the shift begins, in the ordinary. Movement is medicine, not just for your body, but for your mind, your energy, your creativity. When you walk, you reconnect to the rhythm of the earth. Every step reminds you that you're still moving forward, no matter how stagnant life might seem. It's a quiet kind of healing, one that doesn't demand effort or discipline, just presence. The simple act of walking every day clears stagnant energy from your system. Ideas flow, your mood lifts, your mind untangles itself. You begin to feel lighter, not just physically, but spiritually too. And then there's silence. You'd be surprised how much noise your mind depends on. Music, podcasts, background chatter. It's all filler, a way to escape the discomfort of being alone with your thoughts. But silence is not empty. It's full of answers. When you remove the constant noise, you give your mind a chance to rest and realign. The first few times will feel strange, even boring. But once you get used to the stillness, it becomes addictive in the best way. You start to feel your own thoughts again. You start to notice beauty in things that never seemed to matter before. The sound of your footsteps, the wind brushing against your face, the natural rhythm of life unfolding without interference. That's energy shifting. That's awareness deepening. Your mind is always shaping your world, whether you realize it or not. So what happens when your environment becomes quieter, your movements more intentional, and your focus sharper? Your energy begins to flow instead of scatter. Imagine a pond. When the surface is disturbed, it's hard to see your reflection. But when the water is still, you can see yourself clearly. That's what silence and movement do. They still the waters of your inner world. And from that stillness, your creativity awakens. You start to connect dots effortlessly, solve problems intuitively, and see opportunities where there used to be obstacles. Then there's the humble pen and paper, the oldest, simplest tools for creation. Writing things down by hand may seem outdated in the digital age, but it carries a quiet power most people overlook. When you write, you translate invisible thoughts into physical form. You give shape to energy. Goals become more than ideas. They become commitments. And something strange happens when your words meet the page. They start rearranging your reality. You begin to attract situations that align with what you've written. not through magic, but through clarity. Your subconscious starts working with you instead of against you. All these little things, walking, silence, writing, they're not random habits. They're recalibration rituals. They return you to your natural frequency, the one buried under years of noise, distraction, and rush. When you start doing them consistently, your energy begins to move differently. You're more grounded, more focused, more alive. You no longer chase balance, you become it. That's the beauty of simplicity. It doesn't scream for attention, but it quietly transforms everything it touches. There's a moment everyone reaches, when you suddenly realize time isn't something you have, it's something you spend. Every hour you trade for distraction or worry is an exchange of energy, not just minutes. And once that clicks, you stop viewing your schedule as a list of tasks and start seeing it as a reflection of your inner state. The way you use your time mirrors the way your energy flows. Spend it scattered, and you'll feel drained. Spend it with intention, and life begins to respond differently. Energy moves where your attention goes, and attention is the most expensive currency you own. Most people underestimate how subtle energy leaks destroy their quality of life. Saying yes to things that don't excite you, forcing yourself into routines that don't match your natural rhythm, it all chips away at your vitality. You've probably felt it before, waking up early because successful people do, feeling like your soul is still asleep, or working late because it looks productive, when in reality, you're just running on fumes. The truth is, your energy peaks at specific times, and learning when that happens is one of the greatest life upgrades you can make. Once you align your work, rest, and movement with your body's rhythm, everything flows smoother. You get more done with less effort, and your energy no longer fights against time. It moves with it. And here's where awareness deepens. Every decision you make carries a cost. If your day were worth $1,000, would you still spend it mindlessly scrolling? Would you still give your best hours to things that don't matter? Imagine breaking your time down into minutes that each hold value. Suddenly, small moments, morning routines, silent walks, even 5-minute breaks feel sacred. When you realize how valuable your time truly is, laziness starts feeling expensive and focus feels like freedom. You stop overworking for the sake of proving your worth and start working from clarity and purpose. But there's another layer most people overlook, the gratitude for the time you already have. Everyone's chasing more hours, but few realize how many they waste wishing for a different moment. Think about it. One day, you'd give anything to relive this exact second. The sound of your child laughing, the hum of the city outside your window, even the people who occasionally drive you crazy. These are the raw materials of a meaningful life, and they're fleeting. Gratitude expands energy. It multiplies what you have. When you start cherishing what's here, time stops feeling like it's slipping away. It starts feeling like it's opening up. So when you think about improving your life, don't just focus on routines or goals. Focus on how you're spending yourself. Your time is your vibration in motion. How you choose to use it will either drain your energy or amplify it. Protect it like your life depends on it, because it does. When you begin to treat each moment like a sacred investment, your energy shifts from surviving to thriving. You stop chasing balance and start creating it. Time no longer feels like something you're losing. It becomes something you're living, fully, consciously, and beautifully. Here's a truth that quietly separates those who evolve from those who stay stuck. If you want a life that feels extraordinary, you can't live like everyone else. Most people follow the path that's been laid out for them. Study, work, buy, repeat. They let the current of society carry them without ever questioning where it's going. But when you decide to step out of that current, something shifts inside you. You stop living reactively and start living intentionally. And yes, it's uncomfortable at first. The crowd will call you unrealistic or strange. But freedom has always belonged to those willing to look foolish in the beginning. Living opposite the crowd doesn't mean rebelling just to prove a point. It means breaking the spell of unconscious living. you start noticing how the mainstream glorifies consumption, distraction, and comfort, all while disguising them as happiness. Everyone's running in circles trying to outdo each other in misery. More work, more stuff, more validation. But real energy, the kind that fills your life with vitality and depth, comes from subtraction, not addition. When others waste hours scrolling, you study. When they complain, you build. When they numb their pain with noise, you face it and grow stronger. The crowd runs from discomfort. You learn to find wisdom inside it. There's a strange kind of peace that comes from walking your own path. Suddenly, the noise that once dictated your choices starts to fade. You realize that normal was never the goal. It was the trap. Doing what everyone else does may keep you comfortable, but it keeps you small. And small energy can't sustain big dreams. Every time you choose differently, whether that's eating clean when others indulge, investing instead of spending, reading when others scroll, you send a signal to the universe that you're ready for more. That signal doesn't just attract new opportunities, it reshapes your inner frequency. You start resonating with people and experiences that match your higher standard. Reading becomes one of your greatest allies in this process. Books are more than words on paper. They're bridges between worlds. They hold the distilled wisdom of every human who's ever searched for meaning, every mind that's dared to question. Reading reconnects you to that lineage of seekers. It sharpens your focus, stretches your imagination, and gives you language for thoughts you couldn't yet articulate. The right book can shift your energy faster than months of mindless content ever could. It's like feeding your soul the nutrients it's been starved of. And as you expand your understanding, you learn how to communicate differently. You stop trying to sound smart and start trying to be understood. Most people operate at the level of emotion, not logic. So when you learn to meet them where they are, you gain influence without manipulation. You can speak in a way that uplifts rather than divides, that inspires instead of impresses. That's the real art of living opposite the crowd, not isolating yourself from it, but learning how to rise above it while still reaching back to help others see more clearly. Because when your energy changes, you don't just change your own life, you become a quiet invitation for others to do the same. You can't shift your energy if you're constantly plugged into chaos. Modern life is designed to keep you wired, anxious, and endlessly reachable. Notifications, emails, breaking news, DMs. It's like your nervous system is under constant attack, and you've started to mistake it for normal. But it's not normal to live on high alert. It's not normal to wake up and instantly scroll through the world before you've even connected with yourself. When you unplug, even for a day, you start to realize how much noise you've been carrying that isn't even yours. The silence might feel heavy at first, but what feels like emptiness is actually space, and space is what your energy has been begging for. Disconnecting doesn't mean isolation, it means recalibration. Think of it like clearing the static from a radio so you can tune back into your own frequency. When you take 24 or 48 hours away from your phone, your mind begins to detox. The constant pull to respond, to perform, to consume, it fades. What's left is you, just you, raw and unfiltered. At first you'll notice how restless your hands feel, how quickly your brain searches for stimulation. But once the withdrawal passes, a wave of peace begins to rise. Your creativity wakes up. Ideas appear without force. Even your breathing slows down. You start to remember what it feels like to be a human being, not a digital echo. And while you're unplugged, something deeper happens. Your emotions start to surface. Most people suppress how they feel because it's inconvenient, or because they're afraid of what might come up if they slow down long enough to listen. But your emotions aren't your enemies. They're energy trying to move through you. When you block them, that energy stagnates, creating heaviness, fatigue, even depression. Expression is how you set it free. Talk, write, move, cry, create. Whatever helps the energy flow again. Because once it does, You stop carrying emotional baggage in your body, and that instantly lightens your frequency. You don't just feel better, you feel clearer. And then there's stress, everyone's silent saboteur. It's not about eliminating it, it's about mastering it. Your stress response is like a fire alarm. It's supposed to warn you, not run your life. But if it's constantly blaring, you'll never hear your intuition. That's why you need a stress protocol, your personal reset button. Maybe it's deep breathing, maybe a power nap, maybe a walk outside or a cold shower. The method doesn't matter as much as the intention, to remind your system that you're safe. Once your body feels safe, your energy expands. You become more magnetic, more present, more capable of handling what life throws your way without being thrown off balance. Minimalism isn't just about having fewer things. It's about reducing energetic clutter. Every object, every obligation, every thought takes up space. When you minimize, you make room for what actually matters. The clearer your environment, the calmer your mind. And when your mind is calm, your energy naturally rises to meet that stillness. That's how you return to center, not through grand spiritual awakenings or extreme discipline, but through everyday choices to unplug, to feel, to breathe, to simplify. It's a homecoming, a quiet reminder that peace isn't something you find, it's something you create by making room for it. Curiosity is the spark that keeps your soul from going dim. It's the quiet pull that makes you ask, what else is possible? And without it, life turns dull, repetitive, mechanical. You've probably seen it happen. People stop questioning, stop exploring, stop dreaming. They get comfortable, and comfort slowly turns into confinement. Protecting your curiosity means protecting your aliveness. It's what keeps your energy expanding instead of collapsing into routine. When you follow what genuinely fascinates you, whether it's a random topic, a new skill, or an idea that makes no logical sense, you feed the part of you that's closest to the divine. The world, though, is built to numb that instinct. From childhood, you're told to sit still, follow the rules, fit in, and stop asking too many questions. You're rewarded for memorizing, not for wondering. And by adulthood, most people have traded curiosity for certainty. But curiosity is sacred rebellion. It's how you escape the hypnosis of a predictable life. Every time you choose to explore something new, instead of repeating what you know, you shift your energy toward growth. You start living in possibility again, not limitation. And that's what keeps your inner world alive and electric. But curiosity can't survive in toxic soil. You can't stay curious if your environment constantly drains you. If you're surrounded by people who mock your interests, a job that kills your imagination, or spaces that feel lifeless, your spark starts to fade. So protect it. Be ruthless about what and who gets access to your attention. You don't have to cut everyone off. Just create distance between your energy and anything that dulls your wonder. When you surround yourself with people who are passionate, questioning and alive, your own curiosity begins to bloom again. It's contagious. And part of keeping that spark alive is disconnecting from the illusion of success that social media feeds you. Those luxury accounts, lifestyle influencers, and old money pages aren't motivating you. They're programming you to compare. They make you believe you're behind, like your joy is waiting at some imaginary finish line. But the more you compare, the more your energy fractures. Real success isn't measured by how impressive your life looks. It's measured by how inspired it feels. Shift your focus from external admiration to internal alignment, and you'll find that your drive naturally returns. You stop chasing and start creating. Eventually, when curiosity and patience meet, abundance follows. Once you understand how to create, build, and earn from a place of alignment, money stops being the goal. It becomes a byproduct. You learn that consistency, not chaos, is what sustains your energy. Doing the small, sometimes boring things over and over again with awareness, that's mastery. And through that mastery comes peace. Because you realize that life isn't about working until you can finally rest. It's about learning to live in a way where every day already feels like freedom. Retirement isn't an age, it's a vibration, and when your curiosity stays alive, you never retire from life itself. You just keep expanding, exploring, and evolving into higher and higher states of being. In conclusion, energy doesn't shift overnight. It happens quietly, through choices that seem too simple to matter. Walking more, being still, writing, sleeping deeply, speaking honestly, and protecting what makes you feel alive. These aren't just habits, they're sacred acts of self-respect. You don't have to reinvent your life, you just have to start honoring it. When you move with intention, the universe meets you halfway. When you stop rushing, life stops running from you. Shift your energy, and everything else follows. Peace, abundance, clarity, all of it. So take the first step today, even if it's just walking outside without your phone. Your new frequency is already waiting for you to meet it halfway. There are moments when you stand between what's behind you and what hasn't yet arrived, a stillness where nothing is clear, yet everything is shifting in ways you didn't expect. You try to hold on, but life keeps slipping through your fingers like water. Plans unravel, people drift, doors that once opened effortlessly now remain shut. And beneath the confusion, a quiet voice asks, "Why is this happening now?" What if it's not falling apart, but falling into place? What if the chaos isn't a punishment, but a passage? There's a deeper current guiding you, one that doesn't operate by logic, but by alignment. The universe doesn't seek your comfort, it seeks your transformation. And sometimes the only way to awaken you is to undo everything you've outgrown. You feel the shift. The old version of you is fading. The patterns, the attachments, the identities, they no longer fit. This isn't the end. It's the turning point. You're not being abandoned. You're being summoned, rearranged, prepared. And the sooner you understand why, the sooner you'll stop resisting and start remembering you were never meant to stay the same. What feels like disorientation is often divine design. The confusion you're standing in now isn't a mistake. It's a construction zone. The universe is rebuilding something sacred within you, and the process rarely looks clean. You've stepped out of the old, but the new hasn't fully formed yet. That's not a void to fear, it's a womb. You're not lost, you're becoming. And every disruption you're facing is part of a larger symmetry you can't yet see. Life will never stay in the shape you once knew. It wasn't meant to. It was too expansive, too eternal. To yesterday's memory. So when something falls apart, when it unravels without warning, it's not always because something went wrong. Sometimes it's because something is going right. A new season is forming, and the universe is rearranging everything that no longer fits the frequency of how it headed. What used to work begins to glitch. What used to feel safe becomes heavy. You ask for peace, but held on to chaos. You asked for clarity, but resisted the cleansing. You asked for a higher path, and now the universe is clearing everything that could block it. You were never being ignored. You were being heard too deeply for the surface to remain untouched. Just as a potter must first break the hard clay to remold it, the life you've known must be softened, stirred, restructured, not out of cruelty, but out of incredible care. There's an intelligence in the unseen, a pattern to the pullbacks, the pauses, the endings. When something exits your life abruptly, it may not be punishment, but prevention. When the door slams, it may not be rejection, but redirection. The universe knows when something has served its purpose, and rather than letting you stay where your spirit can't stretch, it moves the ground beneath you to carry you forward. It doesn't wait for your comfort, it waits for your readiness. This is why the rearrangement feels so intense, because it reaches into the roots. It's not content with surface level change. It dismantles what you built your identity on so that a truer foundation can emerge. And that's why you're here, watching this, feeling the shift. You're not being abandoned in the confusion. You're being refined by it. This isn't destruction. This is precision. The universe is not removing things to take from you. It's positioning you for what you truly asked for. And every piece that feels like it's breaking is actually falling into place. When the universe begins to rearrange your life, one of the first things it asks of you is this: let go. Not because what you're holding is bad, but because it's no longer in harmony with who you're becoming. The rearrangement isn't just about changing your outer circumstances, it's about dissolving your inner attachments. You can't walk into a new reality while dragging yesterday's weight behind you. Detachment is not a loss, it's a sacred untying, a deliberate release of what once served its purpose, but now quietly holds you back. So much of what makes the rearrangement feel painful is the resistance to this release. We attach meaning to people, roles, plans, assuming they define who we are, and when those things shift or disappear, it feels like a part of us is disappearing too. But what if it isn't you that's being lost? What if it's just the layer you no longer need? The universe rearranges not to strip you of your worth, but to reveal what was always deeper than the surface connections. Detachment is the universe's way of making space. Space for alignment, expansion, and the next stage of your soul's unfolding. Imagine trying to climb higher while gripping tightly to the ledge below. That grip, your fear of letting go, becomes the very thing that stops you from rising. The universe knows when something has become too small for you, and in its wisdom, it starts shaking loose the structures you've mistaken for safety. This is where the rearrangement often feels like chaos. Things fall away faster than your mind can explain. But the truth is, you're not being emptied to suffer. You're being emptied to receive. Letting go isn't an act of weakness, it's the doorway to transformation. Detachment is not about becoming indifferent or cold. It's about trust. Trusting that what is meant for you cannot be lost. Trusting that the space left behind by what departs is not a wound, but an invitation. The universe is not asking you to detach to punish you. It's doing it to align you, to your truth, to your future, to the version of yourself that's